Welcome back to my shop. My name is Guy, and this is the third video of a series I'm doing of building this, which is a curved front buffet. This time I'm going to do the glue up, which was interesting to say the least. I'm also going to do all the internals, which was the supports for the drawers and these shelves. Now these shelves are veneered with the hardwood edge banding. A lot of fun to make, but as always there's a lot of work to do, so let's get to it. All the surface prep for the frame is complete. I've sanded every surface, I've vacuumed it all off, and I've cleaned it all off with denatured alcohol. I've given myself a larger work area to work on because my assembly table is too small for this piece. I've got my clamps set up already, and I'm ready to start the glue up of this. This is going to be difficult because the panels, the stiles have to go in here in a certain order. I've done a dry run, and I'm pretty confident I'm going to get this done, so let's get to it. Well, the back panel is out of the clamps, and with that done, I can start working on the front piece. This is a pretty simple glue up. I'm just going to do the two dividers and the top piece and let this sit overnight also. Well, I've got the dividers in place on the front legs and it's all clamped up. I also put these corner blocks in here. I want to make sure this interior opening is perfectly square. I've checked it 10 ways to Sunday, and as far as I can tell, it's perfectly square. So again, I use high glue on this to give myself that open time so I can move things around, but I am going to have to let this sit for at least 12 hours in the clamps. I'm actually going to let this sit over tonight, and then I'll take it out of the clamps tomorrow. Well, it's the next day. I have the front piece out of the clamps. I have it flipped back over, and now I'm going to glue the legs on the front. I want to keep this face flat to this table, so I'm not going to be able to put clamps on it, but these are not real tight, but they're tight enough so once I get them in there, they're not going to move, but I can't really move this for at least 24 hours afterwards. Everything is glued up, and I've cleaned up all the glue squeeze out. And everything is really, really nice and square. So I am not going to touch this for at least 24 hours. There's some other things I can do while this is drying. Well, I've got everything all clamped up now, and it came out pretty nice. After I got everything all clamped up, I checked the diagonals here, and I was more than a 1/4 inch off, which is totally unacceptable. So I grabbed this bar clamp, put a spring clamp here, and cinched it together. Now I'm within a 32nd of an inch, and for me, that's perfect. So I'm just going to let this sit for a day, and then we'll get it out of the clamps. Well, the piece is out of the clamps finally, And I need to start working on the internal supports. There's going to be a piece that goes across here and here. Those are going to be for part of the drawer slides. And down here on the bottom. And then there's also going to be these pieces that hold the shelves up in the middle. Now these are all going to be held together with pocket screws. Now I could have easily made, you know, some kind of Morrison tenon joint or a domino here to hold these in. But trying to get all this together during the glue up and those extra pieces would have been really tough, and I really didn't want to deal with it. The pocket screws are more than enough for this. Well, all the internal supports are in now. This is for the bottom shelf. There's a ledge here on the back and up the sides. It's for the middle shelf. Again, these are all pocket screwed in. And I've got some supports here on the sides also. And these are supports for the drawers when I get them fitted on the inside. Well, I'm getting ready to start making the lower and mid shelf for this. And this is going to be veneered also. Now I've cut the veneer already for this. These are about 67 inches long and 4.5 inches wide, give or take. And since these are so long, I didn't do this on the last one, but I'm going to do it this time. Is I'm going to flatten the veneer. And I'm using this, which is a veneer softener. It's water with some glycerin in it. I'm just going to spread it on here, put 2 pieces down. This is unprinted newspaper. I'm going to use that to help absorb some of the extra moisture on it. Put a board over the top, let it sit for a day, change the paper out, and probably do that 2 or 3 times. It's going to take a couple days for this to dry. But I need to get this nice and flat, so A, it's easier to joint, and B, it's going to be easier to seam. All the veneer has been flattened and it's dry. It's important that this is dry because if it's still wet and you make a panel out of it, this is going to shrink and it's going to cause you some issues. So this is a piece that was unflattened. I didn't put any veneer softener on, and you can see it's pretty brittle and not very straight. While this has been flattened, it's a little bit more flexible and it is pretty flat. So I need to start working on the edges for this so I can join them together to make the panels. To joint the edges of the veneer, I'm going to use this jig, and many of you have seen me do this before. This is just 2 pieces of plywood. I've got some bolts through the ends. This has been recessed so I can lay flat against the joiner fence. And I'm just going to separate these. I'm going to take like 3 pieces of this veneer, sandwich it in there, and then make sure that it's all the way down on the bottom, and then I'm going to tighten up these nuts and bolts. Now I'll be able to take this over to the joiner, put this face up against the fence, run this through, and get a nice flat joint there. With this edge complete, all I need to do is loosen the nuts and bolts, flip it over, and get the other edge. I have all the veneer edge jointed, and this is the A stock and this is the B stock. This is free of any sapwood and the color is very even. This will go on the top of the shelves. This is the B stock. There's some sapwood. The color isn't as consistent. And this will be the balancing veneer that goes on the bottom. So with this all done, I need to start seaming this, taping it up, and getting it ready to be veneered to the substrate. I have one of the panels done here. I need to make 3 more, and then I'll be ready to glue this to the substrate. I've got the veneer panels done, and I'm ready to actually glue it to the substrate. I've got this piece here. It's 3/4 inch plywood. I've got the veneers ready to go. All I need to do is put glue on the substrate. I'm going to do the back first, flip it over, put the top on, get that all done, tape it, and then slip it in the bag. Well, the first panel's in the bag. I've drawn about 25 inches of mercury, and I've calculated out there's literally 10 tons of pressure on this bag right now. So manufacturer recommends I leave this in the clamp for 45 minutes to an hour. I'm going to give it an hour. It is a water-based glue. You do have to take it out of the bag for the glue to cure properly, and then I'll let it sit 24 hours before I do anything with it. But for now, I'm just going to let it cook. Panels are out of the bag, and I've cleaned them up. I've gotten the tape off, and I've scraped them real lightly just to get rid of anything that might be on the surface. Now, when I put these panels on here, the veneer on the substrate, I didn't line it up with this edge, and that's okay. So I'm going to take my track saw, and I'm going to take the track. I'm just going to get as close as I can to this edge and create a reference line or a straight line all the way down here. Now I have to drop in both the bottom shelf and the middle shelf from the top, so I can't have one big piece here. I need to split it up into 3 pieces, the end pieces and the middle. So I made a mark here before. That's the center of what this leg is when I put these dividers in down here. So I just need to measure from here to that spot, which is 21 inches. And I'm also going to be putting hardwood edging on both ends and in the front. So that's going to add 1/8 of an inch because it's a 1/16 of an inch on each side. So I need to cut this first piece here at 20 7/8 of an inch. With the 3 pieces for the bottom cut, I need to make the same measurements for the middle shelf and cut those real quick. I've also put this little curve right here so I know which side the curve is going on. Now I've got a center line here, but that's not going to be the center line of the panel because I have to have some extra meat on the ends to go around the panel. So I've done some calculations, made some measurements, and I know for the middle panel I need to be 10 7/16 from this end. So I'm just going to go 10 7/16. Make sure I'm still square, which I am. So now I can go over to the bandsaw and cut this excess material off before I pattern route it with this piece. I've got the edge banding on this. It's 1/16 of an inch thick, and I've just taped it on. I've put it on both sides and the front. Now that I have all the edge banding on and flush to the panels, I need to start fitting these into the carcass. So I'm just going to put this in here, keeping it flat to the back, and some call it marking from reality. I'm just going to take my marking knife and mark where I need to notch out the corners of this so this panel will drop in there. With that marked out, I'm actually going to transfer that to the other side. I am going to cut this on my bandsaw, so I need to make sure I have the marks on both sides of it so I can see where I'm cutting. With this last corner cut out over here, the panel dropped into place. Now I can just go ahead and do the rest of the bottom, and then I'll have to do the middle row too. This is going to take me some time. It's a little tedious, but it should look real good when I'm done. All the shells have been fitted and are in place, and they came out really, really nice. I'm really happy with the way they look, and they fit in there exactly like I had hoped to. The only question I have now is, do I finish the doors next or do the drawers? I don't know.